She spoke when everyone else stayed silent. In the glittering lobby of a five-star hotel, CEO Samuel Graves rules with ice in his veins until a new employee dares to challenge him in front of everyone. What begins as a clash of wills unravels into a story of hidden scars, unexpected kindness, and a choice that could change both their lives forever. Power, courage, redemption. Sometimes one voice can break the silence. Everyone at Crestwood Corporation knew the golden rule: never draw the CEO's attention. At 35, Samuel Graves was already a millionaire owner of a luxury hotel empire, ruling it with a cold precision that made greetings feel unnecessary. Every step he took through a lobby carried the weight of a winter storm, and employees had learned to steer clear of its center. But that morning in the flagship hotel's grand lobby, the unthinkable happened. Why hasn't the quarterly report been uploaded to the board's system yet? His voice rang against the marble walls, slicing through every conversation. The deadline passed over an hour ago. Who's responsible? Silence. Then, from somewhere near the cashier's desk, a woman's voice, calm but strong enough to carry across the room. Do you think yelling will make people respect you more? Mr. Graves? It was like lightning splitting the air. Fingers froze over screens. A bellman stopped mid-step. All eyes turned to a blonde in a crisp uniform name tag reading Chloe, standing tall, hands folded, meeting the CEO's gaze without flinching. Samuel turned his stare, locking on the new hire who'd been there less than 3 weeks. The air seemed to thicken. For the first time, the man no one dared to challenge had met someone willing to stand her ground. He took a step forward, his shadow stretching across the polished floor. You think disrespecting your superior is the best way to survive here? His voice had dropped low. No longer a shout, but each word landed like a hammer. Chloe didn't blink. I think fear only keeps people silent, and silence never makes anything better. Behind the front desk, her coworkers held their breath. They waited for the explosion, the cutting retort, the closed-door meeting that ended with a termination notice. But Samuel didn't fire back. He simply stared at her as if recalculating the situation. Minutes earlier, it had been business as usual, Samuel sweeping in through the revolving doors, invisible pressure radiating with each step. His eyes scanned from the chandelier's glow to Henry, the head concierge, adjusting his tie. A glance at his phone showed the missing report. Synchronization error. He'd cut Henry off, voice sharp as glass. We are not a roadside inn fumbling with lights. This is Crestwood. If you can't meet that standard, you've chosen the wrong place to work. Henry's face flushed. And then Chloe spoke. She hadn't meant to draw attention, but the scene had pulled a memory from deep inside her. A memory of injustice she couldn't ignore. Chloe Hart had understood injustice since she was 17. Her mother, Maria, had worked as a hotel housekeeper for over 20 years. Gentle, diligent, never late. But one rainy afternoon, a wealthy guest accused her of spilling coffee on his leather shoes. No questions, no investigation. The manager fired her on the spot in front of her co-workers. Chloe came home to find her mother sitting on the kitchen floor crying over a cold cup of tea. Justice is for the powerful, not for people like us, Maria had said. The words carved themselves into Chloe's heart like a scar. Years later in college, Chloe trusted the wrong man who disappeared with her savings. She dropped out, worked 2 jobs, and swore 2 things: never to be fooled again and never to stay silent when she saw unfairness. At Crestwood, she'd kept her head down until this morning. Seeing the CEO humiliate an older employee triggered the memory of her mother's humiliation. And this time she didn't keep quiet. To Chloe, courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was speaking up despite it. That afternoon, sunlight spilled gold between the towers as Chloe left through the side door carrying paper bags from the cafe across the street, a rush order for a VIP guest. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. The pedestrian signal lit white. She stepped off the curb, not noticing the black sedan turning too fast. Tires screamed. Chloe. A strong arm caught her around the waist, pulling her clear. The paper bags hit the pavement, coffee and pastries rolling away. her cheek pressed against a solid chest. She could hear his heartbeat pounding. "Samuel, you okay?" His voice was low, almost hoarse. She nodded. "I think so." He let her go slowly, his hand hesitating before falling away. They picked up the scattered items. When their fingers brushed, she pulled back. He simply handed her a pastry without a word. Before walking off, he said softly, "Be careful next time." Her heart was still racing when she stepped back into the hotel, and she wasn't sure if it was from the near accident or the feeling of his arms around her. Days later, after a long shift, Chloe stepped outside for fresh air. At the valet area, an elderly man in a wheelchair was stuck on a cracked curb, his groceries spilled. A few bystanders hesitated. Samuel was already there. He knelt, steadying the chair, gathering each can of soup and loaf of bread. His suit jacket had slipped from his shoulders, his tie askew. He spoke in a voice so gentle she couldn't hear the words, but his expression was nothing like the man she thought she knew. When the man thanked him, Samuel looked up and met her eyes. They held for a moment before he turned away without waiting for praise. She stayed rooted, feeling like she had just glimpsed a part of him he'd hidden for years. Saturday, under a gray sky. Chloe saw Samuel step out of his car across the street. Jeans, sneakers, a faded gray hoodie. No CEO in sight. She followed, stopping at the peeling iron gate of St. Agnes Orphanage. The door opened, and a little girl ran into his arms, Uncle E. The other kids swarmed him, pulling him inside like he was family. Samuel smiled a real, unguarded smile. A boy asked, "Did you bring your guitar?" He lifted an old black case and winked. "Wouldn't be me if I came empty-handed." Chloe stayed by the window watching him sing a silly song about a giraffe who wanted to be a chef. Children's laughter filled the room. She left before he saw her, but the image stayed with her. The next morning, a text from an unknown number, coffee. 5:00 p.m. Need to talk. At the cafe near the hotel, Samuel sat with 2 cappuccinos. "You followed me yesterday," he said, not accusing. "I just wanted to understand." She answered, "The kids call me Uncle E. I started going there after a terrible board meeting, to remind myself kindness still exists." He looked her in the eye. "I built walls because people think I'm arrogant, but sometimes armor is just what you wear to survive." Chloe's breath caught. "I know that feeling." For a moment, they weren't CEO and employee, just 2 people with scars recognizing them in each other. The whispers spread like wildfire. Chloe was using the CEO. The stares changed. Samuel stayed away from the front desk. On the 3rd night, she knocked on his office door. "Do you know what people are saying about me? I've heard some rumors. Rumors that I'm sleeping with my boss for a promotion. And you just let that happen. I didn't want to make it worse. By staying silent, you did. I don't know how to fix it without destroying what we have. You already did." She set her keys on his desk. "I'm taking a week off. I need to know if I was wrong to trust you." 6 days without her, and Samuel felt the emptiness. On Monday, he gathered the staff. "If anyone thinks they can succeed here by charm or proximity to power, reconsider your definition of integrity." I stayed silent when I should have spoken. I owe someone an apology right here where the damage was done. He left the room to stunned silence. The next night at the St. Agnes fundraiser, Chloe received an anonymous ticket. When the keynote speaker canceled, Samuel stepped on stage, sleeves rolled up, old guitar in hand. I once thought hiding who I was would keep me safe. But someone showed me that staying silent when you should speak is its own kind of betrayal. He sang the children's favorite song. A boy ran up to hug him, Uncle E. "There's someone here more important than she realizes," he said. "I'm not afraid to hold her hand in front of the world." Chloe stepped onto the stage and placed her hand in his. Applause thundered through the hall. The next morning, an email went out, listening Fridays. Any employee could meet with leadership for 15 minutes. Samuel showed up, took notes, listened. Henry, the head concierge he'd once humiliated, was honored before the entire company. "I never thought I'd see this day," Henry said, voice breaking. Chloe returned with a new title, Guest Experience Manager. She led sessions on empathy and courage. One cloudy afternoon, Maria was sad over a canceled bakery order. That night, Samuel showed up with a jazz trio and a beautifully decorated cake. He handed her sunflowers. "From your daughter, and from me." Maria's laughter filled the apartment. Out on the balcony, Chloe said, "You didn't just change the company. You changed me. And you reminded me who I really am," Samuel replied. The next morning, they walked through Crestwood's lobby together. Laughter, flowers, and smiles filled the air. Chloe teased, "Still think you hired the wrong person?" Samuel smiled, squeezing her hand. "No. You were right from the start. Sometimes the biggest change doesn't come from grand gestures, but from one voice brave enough to speak." Chloe had spoken when everyone else stayed silent, and that voice hadn't just changed a company, it had saved a man.